Hi, this is Dreyer and welcome to the Financial Freedom Challenge, where our mission is to help you to create, to grow, to protect and to enjoy a life of abundance. And today I'd like to talk to you about the last part of the formula, and that is the accelerator part. So the formula, there's basically 7 steps that we can take. The first thing that we need to know is we need to know the intent. In other words, what is it that you want and by when do you want it, and you need to be crystal clear about that. The second thing is you need to have the right belief systems, because without those belief systems, nothing is going to work. And your belief systems is literally the pivot point. That simply means that you're not going to start with something unless you believe that you can do it. And this is actually a very weird one. I sometimes refer to this also as the pivot point. In other words, you need to believe in yourself and trust yourself that you can start the process, because otherwise you'll find excuses and you're going to find reasons why you can't and you should not do that you're supposed to do in order to become financially free, like investing in yourself or putting in the time or the effort or learning new skill sets, stuff like that. So that's a second part. But I believe that this portion, the second portion, is the most important part about the whole formula, because without the right belief systems, it is impossible to become financially free. Right. Now, once the belief systems, or at least have the intent and know that you're going to need to work on your belief systems if you want to become financially free. You know, a lot of people say, yeah, but I'm not going to pay other people in order to help me, as an example. If that is your belief system, that you're going to figure this out yourself, well, there's a chance that you may figure this out yourself, but there's also a chance that you'll never do it, number one. And secondly, that it's going to take you 30 or 40 years. And in most cases, people do not get it right even after 40 years, simply because they do not have a guidance or a mentor that can help them to speed up this process. Right, so once that is in place, that pivot point where you know, okay, I'll do whatever it's going to take me to do, then you move on to the next one, and that is we need a surplus. Without a surplus, we can't start. And the first thing that we need to do is to create a surplus, or to find the surplus. Sometimes we don't need to create it. We simply create it. Say, for example, you've got a job and you do get an income. Then perhaps by rebudgeting or by looking at your budget, you can find a surplus. And that's an easy way to start. Okay, so I assume that you've got a surplus, or that you know how to find a surplus. The next thing is, now I need to take action. But you can't take the wrong action. And the majority of people follow the wrong action. In other words, they follow the opportunity-seeking strategy instead of the wealth creator strategy. And the difference is simply that in the wealth creator strategy, you're going to take responsibility and do that yourself. So the right action is basically to say, I'm going to follow the wealth creator strategy. In other words, I'm going to take full responsibility for each and everything 100% myself. Of course, you can also go for the opportunity-seeking action, which means that you're going to pass your money on to someone else in the hope that they're going to make you rich or follow their advice. And that, from personal experience, I can tell you that it's not going to work. So that's the right action. And why do we want to take this action? We want to take this action for the next point, and that is we want to leverage ourselves, we want to leverage our resources, we want to leverage our time, our effort, our mindsets, our skill sets, our currencies, and the hard currencies that we've got, in order to get the maximum growth over the least amount of risk. And we also know that the leverage part is the major thing there, is to identify the risk and then to start learning the skills in order to get the risk down. That is the easiest way to get the growth up, and that is where you're going to really start building the competencies. So that competency is going to help you to get the risk down. And as soon as the risk starts going down, you'll find that in the right type of investment, the wealth creators investments types, property and business, those types of investments, that the growth will automatically go up. Right, once that is in place, now I need to start looking at the results. In other words, right in the beginning, the intent is I need to know what my financial freedom growth rate is. Now I'm going to check my investment growth rate. In other words, do I get more or better than at least my financial freedom growth rate? If not, I know there's something wrong with in the formula. I do not apply the formula the way that I should. I need to go back and find out what do I need to do in order to get to the right investment growth rate. And if it is, then for the first time am I going to move on to the last step. So that's going to be the 7th step, and the 7th step basically is now I'm going to start to accelerate it. And the accelerator is basically repeating the whole process. So once you know that something is working, up to that point, that you're going to get is what we call explosive growth. In other words, it's literally you start off with nothing, and then suddenly you've got one, which means that is an explosion that happens. In terms of growth, it simply means that you've got an infinite growth on your investment. In other words, you've turned time, effort, mindsets, and skills into currency. In other words, you literally, on a quantum physical level, you've taken nothing and now suddenly make it something. So the moment that you've got something one, now you can start to work. In my case, I'm going to apply the accelerator, and I did not even create it. Well, I actually created it because I picked up 2 cents, and that 2 cents is more than enough for me to start with the accelerator. Now I'm going to apply this accelerator within the 5 cents challenge that I've got. That is the explosive growth that I've got. Okay, so that simply means that I'm going to repeat the whole process, but now I'm going to add another layer on top of it. In other words, this that I've got already in terms of the explosive growth, the 5 cents, I've already bought a house. The passive income over a period of time is going to give me a minimum of 23 million rand. It started with 5 cents. That happened within 10 months. At the moment, I think I've got, well, I know that I've got a little bit more than R1 million to invest. So I'm not going to touch on that. That is something completely separate. But what I'm now going to do, I'm going to say, okay, now that I've got the 2 cents, how can I accelerate it by following exactly the same process? And this is what a lot of people don't get. You know, I'm referring to this and I say that I've started 54 businesses or profit centers over the last something like 12 years in order to show my students how this works. And this will be another one. At the moment, I've got no idea what it's going to be. I'm going to include it in my next 91-day challenge, and that challenge will only start next year in January. So, but in the meantime, I'm not going to rest and think, well, I should not work on this. I'm going to figure out how can I add maximum value to you, my student, in order to show you simply how to use this principle based on something that we've already got. In other words, on the 5 cent challenge, how can we use that without using any of the money of the 5 cent challenge? Now we're going to accelerate it. Of course, there's different ways that you can accelerate. Some of the accelerations that I've showed is what we call the roll-in strategy. And the roll-in strategy is if you've got a surplus, then instead of sometimes you're going to get to what we call the ceiling of complexity. In other words, you're going to get to a point where it's going to be really hard in that investment to keep on growing your money at a fabulous rate. And for that reason, you simply add another one to it. And that's exactly the same principle that Warren Buffett is following. Warren Buffett says it is impossible to plant one tree and grow that tree until it reaches the sky or the clouds. But what you can do is you can grow a forest of high trees. And this is the accelerator principle. So it's just another way that he explains it. So the moment that one business is there and the business is running or the investment is running, he simply starts and look out for another with that. And I call that the roll-in strategy. In other words, he simply uses that money that he's got to explode a new investment. Now, in my case, I'm simply going to say, okay, but the 2 cents, that was the intent. When Tanya said to me, there's your next million. The moment that happens, I said, okay, this is going to form the intent, and I'm going to build a new investment type of business or investment around this thing, and that is the accelerator. So it's actually a very simple process once you understand it, and for that reason, make sure that you get my book, The Formula for Riches, and make sure that you understand it, or make sure that you understand these principles. And of course, I've got several courses that you can follow in order to really get a deep insight into this. So what's your challenge for today? I think the challenge for you today is going to be very simple. What investment can you accelerate? What's the one investment where if you put some time, effort, mindsets and add some skills to it, or currency to it, in other words, invest into it, which one will give you the best possible return? And how can you speed that thing up? And in other words, how can you accelerate that investment so that investment is going to help you so that it at least beats your financial freedom growth rate. So that one investment, what is that you can do? I hope that you know. If you do not know, or give me a comment, and then I'm going to tell you if it's right or wrong. Just below this video, give me a comment and say what's the one thing that you think that you can and have 100% control over. In other words, you're not going to split the risk from the growth. You're going to control that 100% in terms of your time, effort, your mindsets, and your currency that you're going to put in. Okay, so what is that going to be? How can you take action in order to start this process? Well, one way to do it is, first of all, what results are you currently getting on your investments? And I'm talking to your investments, in other words, your investment growth rate on things like unit trust, your stocks, your business, your properties, your pension fund, provident fund, retirement annuities, endowment policies. So what is the return that you're getting on that? And is that beating your financial freedom growth rate? If it does, then how can you accelerate? In other words, instead of working for 20 years to retire, what can you do to do it in 10? And once you've got it at 10, what can you do to do it in 5? And once you've got it at 5, what can you do to do it in 2.5 or in 2 years' time? That is where the accelerator principle comes in. Because in the accelerator principle, in the financial definition, or in the maths, you're going to find it's M to the power of P, NM to the power of PT to the power of Q. So there's two powers to it. But that simply means that now the N equals my time. So I want to shorten the time. I want to speed up the time process, because we do not have forever. And that is really the function of the accelerator. Instead of doing it over a 20-year or a 10-year period, why can't you do it over a 2-year period or a 5-year period and be in the top 10% of the top 1% in the world in terms of passive income, right? So that is basically that. So if you know how to do it, then speed it up. If you don't know how to do it, okay, then identify what can you do in order to get that right. So in closing, always remember that in order to create financial freedom, and by now you know that it's not going to be easy. Well, actually it's very simple, but you have to make the commitment first. In other words, your intent must be there. Unless you've got the intent, I can promise you it's not going to be easy. And a lot of people say, I want to become rich, but they're not prepared to do anything because their belief systems hamper them and get them not to do it. So what you need to remember is, in order to create a financial freedom, you must make sure that each and every action that you're going to take, in other words, every single thought that you're going to think, you must evaluate this and say, but is this going to help me or is it not going to help me? Because each and every action that comes from our thoughts is going to take you either one step closer to or one step away from financial freedom. And for that reason, it's going to take a lot of responsibility. And most of the time, I did not understand responsibility for many, many years. In '82, I thought that I was taking responsibility, you know, and it's only in '87 that I realized that a lot of the things, most of the things that I was busy doing at that stage in my life in terms of the financial side, there was no responsibility whatsoever. So it really took a while for me to understand what responsibility is. And responsibility suddenly means that it's not responsibility now, it's also responsibility for what happened in the past, the present, as well as in the future. Because what you're going to do today is what was determined by your actions in the past, and what's going to happen in the future is going to depend on your thoughts and your actions today. And it's for that reason that I keep on saying that each and every action that you're going to take is going to take you closer or further away from your goal. And that starts with responsibility, and starts with basically controlling your belief and your mind systems, mindsets. And then, of course, you need to have the intent, because without the intent, you will not have the drive, you will not have the desire, and you're not going to be challenged enough in order to be able to do it. It's going to take time, it's going to take effort. If you're not prepared to do it, I've evaluated this 2-cent story. When Tanya said that to me, initially I was hesitant to do it, but as soon as I decided that I do have the time, I do have the effort, I decided I'm going to do it because I know that I can control my mindsets. I am prepared to learn whatever I need to in terms of skill sets. I still do not know exactly what I'm going to do. I know that I'm looking for something that is really, really challenging. And maybe you can help me by telling me what you would like to learn or how you would like to make your next million. And then maybe I can adopt that and see how I can apply the Wealth Creator strategy to that in order to make it a reality. So we've got a couple of days, about more than 30 days to come up with an idea on what we will do. But I know what I'm going to do with the 2 cents, and that is I'm going to turn it into at least 200,000. Another thing that I'm thinking at the moment, maybe this challenge I should do in dollars instead of in rands, because I believe that I can serve the whole world and not only South Africans, because the principles are exactly the same anywhere in the world, and the rest of the world lacks financial education just as much as South Africans are lacking it. And I feel a lot more confident nowadays with my English. I'm sure that the English-speaking community in England and Europe and definitely in America will be able to understand me, or at least get my accent, and will excuse the fact that I do not know how to use the grammar and stuff like that. Okay, so that's going to maybe be part of the new intent that I've got. And you have to work on your mindsets. Without the right mindsets, forget it, it's not going to work. And then you have to take massive action. I'm busy taking massive action in terms of reading, but at the moment it's like an open-ended. I haven't started my mind map yet, simply because I do not know exactly, or I do not know what I'm really going to do. But that will unfold because I've got the intent. That will unfold within the next couple of weeks, or definitely within the next month. Right, so the trick, if you want to become financially free, is to consistently doing what needs to be done on a day-to-day basis. And that's the only way that you're going to get the results that you want. And therefore you must make sure that each and every day must be a perfect day, because each and every action that you're going to take today is either going to take you one step to or one step away from financial freedom. Right, and therefore if you want to guarantee yourself financial freedom, one of the things that you need to do and that you have to do and that you must do today is to say, okay, but how can I accelerate this whole process? Because we do not have forever in order to get to financial freedom. And that is why I think it's crucial that you find ways to accelerate this and to speed up the process, so that it's actually speed up the time. In other words, what we want to do with the accelerated principle, and this is something that I figured out in 1987. You know, instead of working 20 years, why can't I condense it into 10 years? And once I've got it to 10 years, I thought, but why can't I do it in 7 years, which we did. And nowadays we do it in a year or 2 years, depending on the challenge that we are taking. So with the 2 cents, I'm really going to speed it up and to show you what is possible in a very short time. So as always, if you've got any questions or comments or feedback regarding financial freedom, please leave them in the comment box below, and I will help if I can. And then, of course, also remember to subscribe to my blog. That is blog.hannesdreyer.com. I think I'm going to report it also in the Explosive Growth on Facebook, as well as on my Dr. Hannes Dreyer official Facebook. So just search for that on Facebook if you're on Facebook. And also perhaps on the Explosive Growth. I will soon start posting stuff on that regarding this specific challenge, because it's going to be part of the Explosive Growth challenge that I've got. And then feedback regarding my Hot Rate Challenge, I'm going to edit that in so that you can have a look at that as well. And then please share this video if you think that it can help other people, because by doing that you're not only helping yourself, but you're helping other people. And I think that is the purpose why we're here. It is to serve, and it's to help other people to get to where they want to be. Right, and with that, I'll see you then tomorrow.